Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. So for today's episode, we're going to be discussing who we think should be the Padres' fifth starter and really who will be the Padres' fifth starter. Because to me, there's two clear names in the race, which are Nick Martinez and Chris Paddack. Now, Chris Paddack has had some injury question marks. We're going to see how that plays out, but there's been basically no news and no surgery from Chris Paddack. So for this discussion, we're going to kind of just say, all right, Chris Paddack's healthy because we don't really know. I feel like no one really is quite sure right now. But if Chris Paddack is healthy, you got him and Nick Martinez fighting for that fifth spot. Now, there are some other guys that will bring up their names later, but it does feel like, at least to us, that it's really between these two guys. So, Isaac, who are you rocking with? Who do you think should win this job?
If he's healthy, I got to go with Chris Paddack. That's the thing, if he's healthy. So I don't know what's going on with his UCL or anything like that. We haven't gotten any updates on him, which it's pretty unfortunate. But until then, I'm gonna go into it assuming he's healthy. So with that, I think he should be the fifth starter. He was our fourth starter last year, third starter going into the season. I don't really remember. Didn't start off the year very hot. There was like a certain game, I want to say it was against the Brewers, where that's where he like really started to show some flashes of the Chris Paddack we saw at the beginning of his rookie year. That Brewer start was magnificent. I went to a start of Chris Paddack's against the A's. That was when Fernando hit the bomb, and that was like the loudest I've ever heard the stadium for anyone that was there. That was a Chris Paddack start. He gave up 3 runs, I think, in the first and threw 6 shutout after that. So, I mean, those are the flashes that we see from him. I think he can be a solid pitcher if he's able to keep that curveball nice. And the changeup, he needs to get that back in form. I think his curveball kind of became his go-to off speed more than his changeup. So if he's able to get a really nice 3-pitch mix, fastball, changeup, curveball, they don't all got to be magnificent pitches, but what he also really needs is a wipeout pitch, because we saw a lot of times he'd get into 2-strike counts and he'd have a tough time putting the batter away. Lots of foul balls because his wipeout pitch was his fastball. Everyone knew what was coming. Fastball, changeup. That's when the curveball came in, and that's when we started seeing a more efficient Chris Paddack. So with that, I think if we're able to see a good 3-pitch mix out of him, he's a solidified fifth starter. There's a lot of flashes. I'm not ready to just give up on a guy that fast. He's still young. I think, I don't know how old he is, like 24, 25. That's when pitchers start coming into the league, and that's when they start dominating. He came in a lot younger than most pitchers do. So I think the talent is there. I'm not ready to give up on him. We've brought up a Roy Halladay comparison, how Roy Halladay's numbers weren't there at the beginning, and we know what he ended up becoming. So I'll go Chris Paddack. This next time around, I'll talk about Nick Martinez as well.
So just to clear things up, Chris is 26. He will be 27. Oh, no, he just turned 26. So, okay, he will be 26 for this entire season. It's a tough one. Assuming Paddack's completely healthy and Nick Martinez comes and has good spring training, I still think Chris Paddack will edge him out just a little bit, just because we have seen what Chris Paddack's ceiling is, or what it was. I would say its ceiling could be a little higher now that the curveball is not in play, especially considering how effective it was starting to be last year. But the only thing that's going to hold him down is, like Isaac was saying, his changeup kind of wasn't as crisp as it was before. Before it was cool. We knew once Chris Paddack got to 2 strikes, his plus changeup was going to come out, and sometimes even if batters knew it was coming, they weren't going to hit it. Last year, it was more palpable. It was not as sharp as every outing like it used to be. And he started to throw the curveball more and more and more. And it seemed the more he threw the curveball, the less he threw the changeup, and the less he threw the changeup, the less effective it was. So it's one of those things where if he's completely healthy and he finds the right balance between the 3 pitches, because I still think his changeup is probably his best pitch outside of his location for the fastball. But he needs to have that changeup again, because everything will play off the changeup. If you have the changeup going in one direction and you can bring the curveball in and it be effective and fool people going the other direction, and you have the command with the fastball going, he's going to be untouchable. we saw when his best starts were when he didn't have the curveball, is when he locating his fastball and everything was playing off of it. He only had one pitch and everything was playing off of it. The only other concern I have with Paddack that we've seen when there's something wrong, tiny, like if it was like an ankle injury or something was wrong with his mechanics a little bit, his fastball would turn into more of a two seam. It would lose velocity and he would lose command. That is my only concern, especially considering he hasn't been able to contact Nuebla because, the lockout. So, assuming he's completely healthy, I'm going to give it to Chris Paddack to see what Nick Martinez has in spring training. He might be able to edge him out if Nick Martinez has a really good spring training. But as of right now, I think Nick Martinez is like a sixth starter if they decide to go that route, or he's going to be a long relief guy until someone gets hurt.
Yeah, I find this one really fascinating just because I do think it's actually going to depend like how these guys look in spring training. I think ultimately this is a spring training kind of battle basically. But I don't know if I'm like 100% sure that they want Chris Paddack to be the fifth guy. I definitely feel like the organization has some doubts. The last 2 years he's struggled. I mean, high 4 ERA, and last year he was over 5. Now, I don't think if you look at his numbers that it tells the whole story. You guys brought up that the changeup didn't look that good last year. That was across the whole Padres pitching staff. Blake Snell stopped throwing his changeup because it was so bad. I think Ruben Niebla coming in for Rothschild, I think that's a big boost. I think that's a huge stock up for the two guys that I think it's the biggest stock up for is probably, at least in the majors, because I think that this helps Mackenzie Gore a ton, but got to be Chris Paddack and then Blake Snell. So you look at it from that way and you go, all right, is Chris Paddack going to be able to have a spring training that gives the Padres faith that he's going to be able to be a starter in the MLB? I would say yes, I think he's going to have that. Now, the big question now is there even going to really be a spring training? Because I think if you look at this and there's no lockout, I think it's Chris Paddack's job to lose. However, a lot of questions about it. You do go out and sign Nick Martinez, who we haven't talked about much yet, but dude had an absolute resurgence, has been in the Japanese league from 2018, 2019, 2020, and then 2021 is that big breakout year. He didn't pitch a ton before 2021, but in 2021 he had a 1.6 ERA with about 150 innings pitched. So he was spectacular overseas. So I think that I will probably give it to Nick Martinez just because we don't have the spring training. We don't have him making that adjustment, improving that changeup. However, I think that you might see him start out the year in a role where he might be coming in for 2-3 inning stints. And I think if he looks good, I think he will 100% take over that role. So I think, to me, I think Nick Martinez is going to start the year as the fifth starter. However, I think Chris Paddack will play really well, and I think he's going to overtake him. Kind of crazy because Chris Paddack has been bad the last couple of years. But if you look at what he struggled with, it's always like something that's like a glaring weakness. If they can figure it out, if he can have a solid fastball command, if he can keep the velocity up, have the consistency where he's not flipping in and out of throwing a 2-seamer and a 4-seamer, because that was 2020. He was getting picked apart with that. And if he's able to have 2 off-speed pitches and the changeup and the curveball that are looking really good, keeping batters confused. And we saw the curveball had a huge improvement. So you get a bounce back on the changeup. You have, because I think last year was a step in the right direction with the fastball. If you have another step this year, you're looking at a good pitcher. You're looking at a very good pitcher with stuff that is MLB worthy. However, you can't deny that he's really struggled in the past. So I'm a little bit skeptical for how it's going to start. But how you guys feel about Nick Martinez? And I don't know, any other thoughts?
So I pulled up, and this isn't going to tell the whole story because it's from kind of a while ago. I think this was from 2017. I pulled up Nick Martinez's his baseball savant page, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but you can see some blue, you can see some red.
See a lot of blue.
A lot of blue, I know. Fastball spin 83, that's great. Based on walk percentage is great, hard hit percentage great. The velocity wasn't really there. I think it was topping out like at 88 in the MLB. I'm not entirely sure. I want to say his changeup was supposed to be his best pitch. He got his fastball up to 94. I think it was Japan, Korea. I forgot which one.
Japan.
But Japan, right? So he got it up to 94. He pitched fantastic in the what was it, the Olympics? I don't even know what it's called. But he pitched really solid there. But I mean, I don't know. I got to see it first. I got to see it again in the MLB. I think honestly, I think he should come in as like another Nabil Chrismat, a guy that, if you need a long reliever, he'll come out of the bullpen and give you a solid 2 or 3 innings. I think that's how he should start, especially if there's no spring training. You don't know what you got at the MLB level. And this is one of AJ Preller's guys that comes over from the Rangers, and AJ Preller loves him, so he gives him another chance. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve that chance, because he's worked hard to get back to this level. He's gotten his fastball up 6 miles per hour. So that's awesome. His changeup looks solid. He had a 1.82 ERA, 24% strike, 24.9 strikeout percentage, I think it was. Something good. So, he's worked his way back. It's just that if there's no spring training, then he needs to be in that kind of role like Nabil. That won't take away Nabil's role, but I think having 2 of those guys is great. Going back to Chris Paddack, pretty much every person in our starting rotation didn't start having really solid seasons until they were 26. Now, of course, Mike Clevenger was 26 in his second season, had a really solid season. Joe Musgrove, 27 or 28, and this was his 4th or 5th season where he was finally around a 3 ERA, not a high 3, a 3. So it took him 5 seasons. He was 27. Blake Snell, 26 or 27 when he had his Cy Young caliber year, Cy Young winner. And then lastly, Yu Darvish in his second year was around 26 with a mid-3s ERA, something like that. So this is the age where it normally starts happening. Not the year that it normally starts happening. We saw 2 of our guys in their second year balled out, one of our guys in their 4th or 5th year balled out, and another in their 3rd. So around now is the time that, okay, let's see what Chris Paddack's got. If he fails this year, I'll give up. If he does good, then great. But I think that 5th spot is his to lose, as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing is like, when you notice it, usually when guys come over from Japan, they will usually start off pretty well. It's just making the adjustments in the second half of season as well. They start to fall apart sometimes. Like Pierce Johnson, when he first came out in the bullpen for the Padres, we all thought, oh my God, this guy is absolutely disgusting. But then he regressed a little bit, and he's still, probably an above average reliever. He sits low 3 ERAs, if not high 2s. That's pretty good, but I wouldn't say like he's going to be, top 10 reliever of the year. And even for guys that have come across from Japan that were Japanese born, it's taken them 2-3 years to completely get adjusted back to the MLB. I mean, Yusei Kikuchi finally had his breakout year, and I think this was his 3rd year. Shohei Ohtani, this is his 3rd, 4th year. And, we came over with the bat pretty well last year, but his pitching started to take the next direction for him. So I think Nick Martinez might start off really hot, but then, like I think Matt says, Chris Paddack's going to take over after that, because I think he's going to need an adjustment period, and I think in the bullpen he'll get a little bit better of a shot to be the best pitcher that he can be. Chris Paddack's already faced the MLB competition. He knows how to make adjustments. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt last 2 years, because he had Larry Rothschild as the pitching coach, and nobody deserves that. But I think it's his job to lose, like Isaac said. Curveball improved. His changeup regressed a little bit, but I think he's going to be fine with that. As long as his mechanics stay right and he keeps his velocity up, Chris Paddack is going to be one hell of a 5th starter.
Yeah, I guess Friar Talk has turned into full podcast of Chris Paddack truthers, which is hilarious, because like the first season, we would just come out here and be like, man, Paddack sucked today. But then you kind of take a little deeper dive into it, and you're like, all right, I guess it's more of like the spotties, and it's not all on him, like pitching in these big moments so early. I will always remember the wild card game, because I was like, why are we throwing Paddack? The first one, like, why are we throwing Paddack? And then it comes out, and I was like, oh no. But yeah, now we're kind of jumping ship a little bit. Isaac's rubbing off on us. as the first Chris Paddack truther on the pod. But all right, guys, let us know what you think. Who you got as the fifth starter? Couple of their names, and we'll probably do some segments on these guys later. But Dinelson Lamet, Adrian Morejon, we didn't bring up them. Guys in the minor leagues, I don't think Mackenzie Gore would really be in this discussion. I really think it's between these two guys. But Adrian Morejon, Dinelson Lamet, we all believe that they should be relief pitchers or openers. Either way you look at it. Do not want to see them as full-time starters. And Ethan Elliott, Robert Gasser, probably a little bit ways away. Same with Mackenzie Gore and Reggie Lawson because of injury. So other names to mention, but I think it's really going to come down to these two guys. So let us know who you guys got and who you think should be the Padres' fifth starter. But with all that said, we're going to take off. So have a great rest of your Saturday, and we'll talk to you very soon. Also, we'll be going live tomorrow. So talk to you guys then.